these are some cool pictures I took. I think I'm getting the hang of trying to improve composition and so on. So this was taken in RAW. You can see it right here, RAW. And this is actually taken before this picture. Now this one looks a little flat. That's because I accidentally had it in picture profile S-Log3 for a video. When I switched to photos, it didn't change over. That's not how the camera was set up. So this is why it looks a little flat. And the problem with that is, and this is just JPEG by the way, even though it's in JPEG, the picture still looks a little flat, right? So I'd have to go in here and try to edit this. And even when you try to add back saturation in it, let's put some contrast, add some saturation. It's going to take a lot of work to get it to look nice. Versus the raw file, that just looks better. Let's put them side by side. And this would just take a whole heap more work to get it to look like this. That's because it was shot in the wrong picture profile. Now I could put a LUT on here or something, but it's just easier to shoot in RAW, no picture profile. All right, so I'll just try to edit just the pictures that I intended to take in the right picture profile, which is none. And this was done with a long exposure time to get the water looking milky like this. I don't know if it's perfect yet, but I think it's pretty cool. So I would raise the exposure a little bit, actually a whole heap. And I think that looks pretty good where it is. I think so. Now the awesome thing about the current Lightroom is that you can change, is it here? You can change where the focus is on the picture that's already taken. So let's say I focused somewhere where I wasn't intending to. I can move that. Not sure how that translates on the screen, but you can now see that the focus has shifted from the front to the back. Now it's back to the front, kind of, right? So let's say someone was standing here and they weren't pretty sharp. You can see that this is now sharper than back here, where back here is blurry. Whereas if I shift the slider to the back, now that's actually where I focused that day. I can also narrow the focal plane. It still looks a little gimmicky right now, but it's cool that you can do this. Really cool. This was a picture I was taken at night, and I saw this little tour bus coming down. I thought it was pretty cool. Let's see what we can do with auto. It's not too bad. We can put some saturation in here, overall saturation, and then we can play with the shadows a little bit. We got some graininess back here, so we can drop that down because we're not interested in this part of the sky. This is the shot that we're interested in. So increase the contrast. I think that looks pretty cool already. Let me try to change the white balance. Let's use that one. And let's try to pick a color to change that a little bit. Let's put the green to pop a little bit more. And this was taken with the A6600, I think, with a 56mm prime Sigma. 56 at f.2, but the widest it could go is 1.4. And ISO, I think I had looks like it's 1280 here, but it's a pretty good picture for a crop sensor camera. But when you zoom in, it looks like garbage, but just don't zoom in. So let's see if we can drop the shadows a little bit more. Cross with blacks. And then we can denoise this. If we take the noise out, where is that? Here it is. Let's see if we can clean this up a little bit more. Man, look at the difference here. Okay, let's enhance it at that percentage. And it's going right here. We could see the progress. Let's see what it does as far as taking out some of the noise. And it should be better. Should be significantly better. I like this picture because it looks like this is all that's lighting up the scene. And even though I didn't use a narrow aperture, I like the flare of the street light here. Okay, man, that looks so much better. That looks so much better. Goodness mercy. Now if we go back to the original, let's see, original, and that's the edited picture. Original edited picture. Goodness mercy. Love that. Love that a whole heap. All right. This was taken at the park. I like this feather here. I was trying to mess around with the composition that uses the, what do they call it, Fibonacci triangle or whatever it is called. But basically two things are in focus, are are balance the composition on the top left and bottom right, or vice versa. But this is closer to the camera than this, and I focus on the feather. So it would have made sense if both things were in the same focal plane to balance the image. However, I still think it was a cool picture. So this feather was floating right on top of the water. And what you're seeing here underneath are just fall leaves and old leaves and so on. Underneath the water, that's shadows from some bush over here on the left, and the sun is coming from top left, shining to bottom right. And if we zoom in, this camera was, I think this was A7R5. Yeah, A7R5, a different day, with the macro lens, 90mm f2.8 macro lens, prime lens, taken at ISO 100 f4. Still a good picture. Let's see what we can do with auto. I don't know if I do much with this. I kind of like it as is. This is kind of bright though, so we're losing some detail. So let's turn the highlights down a little bit. So let's undo it a little bit first. So notice we can't see much detail here. And I learned in white areas, if we turn the highlights down, we can recover some of that detail. So that's what it's like before. That's with the highlights down. I like that. If we turn the whites down even more, we can see a little bit more detail in the feather. Next up, we got this picture, and I was trying to expose for the highlights in the image, because from what I've learned, it's easier to recover the shadows than to recover the highlights. Once the highlights are clipped, there's nothing you can do about it. So in theory, you should be able to recover the shadows relatively easily. Now let me do auto and see what Lightroom does. That looks significantly better. Now we can still push it a little bit more. Now it looks like garbage. But let me raise the blacks a little bit. That's always tricky sometimes if we go all the way up. That doesn't look too bad actually. No, I just took this picture just because, but I don't know if I'd keep this because I don't know what the story is. What's the story I was trying to tell? I didn't have a story. I just thought it was a cool shot to try colors in the front and then see if I could recover some shadows. All right, these next two pictures I focused close and then far away to see if I can play with the slider in Lightroom to mimic this shot on this shot that is focused closer to the camera. So first let's do auto, which you didn't have to, but Just like to see what it's doing. And then we will see if we can change the focal plane to move it away. Nah, it doesn't work. Can't go that far. It doesn't work. So it is moving a little bit, but it's not perfect right now as it is in Lightroom, because once we move it, you can see these weird artifacts that show up. No, under no circumstance with a camera or a modern camera give you these kind of artifacts, right? So if we take it off, you can see that's how it's supposed to look. Even in the one that's focused far away, the branches don't have that double, like that double border as they do when you try to artificially adjust the focal range. And we could widen that a little bit. Let's see what that does. Nah, it still doesn't look right at all. Now it looks right here, but that's just about where I had it focused to begin with. All right, so it doesn't work in this instance. It would be nice if there was something out here to focus on. All right, this is a shot I think would have been cool if a squirrel or something was sitting here and I would get it. But I was walking by and I thought this was cool with how the light was hitting this bit of this patch of moss here. Moss, I think it's moss. I think it's moss. But let's see what Lightroom can do with auto. It's not too bad. And really what should have happened is this could have been cropped in more if I've gotten closer. Probably like that if something was on this little branch right here. That would have been real cool. And then we could draw the highlights down a little bit. Because as it is, I can't see any detail here, but if we drop the highlights down, we recover some detail. We can still raise the exposure, which doesn't do the same thing, I learned. And that looks like a good picture, but there's a whole heap going on. I don't know what the point of it is. There's no focal, there's nothing interesting, I think, looking back, but at the time I just like how the light was hitting this. All right, this is a shot here I think was interesting in my eyes. This lonely stump out in the pond, and there was a leaf here. Over here I kind of cropped it out. I tried not to include it in the film. Was a bit of land that was protruding out into the pond, but I tried not to include it. So if I was going to crop this, I just crop it just a little bit to get rid of that shot, and then maybe this way. I just liked how this was by itself and it was reflected almost like a mirror image of the stump in the water. I didn't get a mirror of the leaf, but let's see what it does with auto. That's not too bad right here. I turned the highlights down because this side here is kind of burnt out. But according to Lightroom, this is a perfect exposure. According to Lightroom, I kind of like how this looks. I wish I could have done something more with it to make it even more interesting. Of course, again, if there was something else on here, it would have been cool to have that. But then it would detract from the story I was trying to tell with the lonely leaf and the stump over here, like a tree that used to be there and it's no longer there, but now there's only a leaf. You know, are they coming back together? Who knows? And what you're seeing under here is just the bottom of the pond underneath the water. All right, this last shot is of a boardwalk, a reasonably long boardwalk, and I wanted to focus on just this little leaf here or branch that was just growing in between. I tried to take a shot of myself standing here, but it didn't work out, so I didn't include it. But back here is, I wish I had maybe taken the shot more from this way or went closer and made this larger, because right now it's not clear what the subject of the shot is. if I was trying to be objective, I mean, I know what I'm trying to get. I was trying to get this thing. But if I was being objective, I would say looking at this picture, it would not be clear what the focal point of the shot is. People would just be looking here. Okay, is there something here? Is there something? Should something be here? It just so happens that I took the picture, so I know I was trying to focus on this. So that's the intent of this shot. Plus, over here is a little distracting. Don't know what the point of this is. Maybe if I crop it out, it would look a little better. Let me see. Kind of. Let me try crop it some more. Now that crop, I'm going to lose detail though. That's the only thing, but it doesn't matter. We're just practicing here. And then we can crop a little bit. Yeah, that kind of does it. We can take some more off of that bottom there. Yeah, I think that should make it clear now what the point of this picture is when you crop in. So something like that should look better. All right. Another day of shooting, another couple days of learning. Cool.